I'm Megan.
And I'm Jen, and you're listening to the Travel Mug Podcast.
Every episode, we talk about travel destinations, interesting trivia, and even some travel fails.
Let's dive into today's episode. Don't forget to travel mug. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Travel Mug Podcast. This week, we are joined by James Hammond. Finally, we've been talking about this forever, of Winging It Travel. So we've met on Instagram in our little travel podcast community, which I love. So you have a podcast and a YouTube channel as well. So James is based in Vancouver, Canada right now, and has visited over 70 countries and has been working and traveling since 2013, which is not yesterday now.
Unfortunately not.
We are so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, James.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me on. Really appreciate it.
So like we mentioned, you're currently in Canada, but where are you from originally? And tell us a bit about growing up there.
I am from Norwich in England, so east if you like. And Norwich is small. It's known for being a bit inbred, if you like, from the UK people. If you spoke to people from London or Manchester or whatever, they say, oh yeah, that's way over there. And for them, it's a long way to anywhere, but in reality, it's only a 2-hour drive from London, right? So it's not that far. But in Canadian style, it's pretty close. But in UK, it's pretty far.
That's what's on the road.
Yeah, direct trains and stuff. So yeah, it's a strange mentality towards Norwich. But yeah, as a place, because people see it as far away, it's quite small, quiet. A lot of people stay, don't leave too much. What you find in Norwich is a lot of people go there to university. It's got one of the best universities in the UK, and then they stay. I think they quite like the vibe. You can fly direct there from to Amsterdam, half an hour flight across the water. So yeah, a lot of people like to be based there, and it's got Norfolk Broads and the coast about 20-minute drive away. So Norfolk, which is the county, is got some of the best beaches in the UK. So yeah, it's kind of well known for that. A lot of RAF bases, so a lot of Air Force bases, right. US and UK. And yeah, nice place to be.
Sounds lovely to me. I mean, if I went, maybe I would stay as well. But you didn't. So you started working/traveling in 2013, like we mentioned. Like, where was this idea born from? So had you always been interested in traveling, and how many countries had you actually been to up to that point? So that 2013 timeframe.
I would say before 2011, in the 2010-11, I was not travel focused at all. It wasn't even a thing, because I come from quite I would say a working class background, like very much so. So it was never an option traveling when I was younger. So it never really came into your thoughts. More about survival and more than anything else. So up until probably 2008, I moved to London to study music. Somehow got in through an audition. And then London was a big jump. I know it's only 2 hours away, but Norwich to London is like going, I don't know where you guys are. It's like going from English Beach to Halifax. I don't know, something like that. It's that big a jump, right? So it got busier. It's a lot more culture, a lot more going on, and more expensive as well. And I studied music, and then halfway through, I was seeing a girl in Norwich actually for the summer, and she talked to me about travel, and I didn't really know what she meant. And she explained what it meant in terms of you go away for 3 months, not just a week, and you can go to these different places around the world. And then that kind of blew my mind. And then I booked a trip to Australia at the end of 2010 and 2011, start of 2011, to go and watch the cricket. And I couldn't believe Australia existed. Blew my mind. And that's when it really started, I think.
You really went far for your first trip there. Kind of went for it.
Yeah. Because I think up to that point, I think you asked how many countries, probably 6 or 7.
Right.
And most of them, or all of them in Europe, apart from Australia. So up to 2013, I went to Ukraine as well in 2012. We drove there from London via Poland and France. But yeah, I think most of it was just Europe-based, and then Australia was the outlier. And in Australia, I met someone at the cricket who said, oh, you just book a work visa and come here. I was like, what do you mean you just come here? He goes, you can stay here for a year or 2 and just work. I was like, oh, wow. So I'm going to do that when I finish my degree. So that was the plan.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. It's funny, growing up in Canada, and we don't have easy access to like other countries besides the US. So it's so much harder like growing up to kind of see different places. And I mean, especially for us here in the East Coast of Canada, like our easy access is the East Coast of the US, which a lot of it is pretty similar to the East Coast of Canada. When you're in Maine, it's like, it could be Nova Scotia, it could be Maine. Who knows?
But you are lucky that you do have that East Coast part. I mean, here it's the West Coast,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
To get to anywhere that's like, if you're looking for a city, is still a 5-hour drive down south, right? To maybe Seattle via the border or Portland, and all of California is a bit further on. But there's nothing much east. I mean,
True.
we drove it, as we've probably come on to, and apart from Calgary and the Rockies, which are amazing, by the way, you are in the countryside a lot. So at least you have that.
Yes. All right, let's talk about your epic road trip. So Vancouver to Cape Breton, is that right? Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Vancouver Island, yeah. Tofino.
I cannot even imagine. As Megan and I have talked about before, I'm not a super road trippy person. Megan's done quite a few more than I have. But tell us about your epic road trip adventure. Where did the idea come from for this?
Yeah. So, during COVID, right, when we couldn't travel at
Yeah.
all, we actually bought a camper van in that. So I don't know if people remember, but in Canada, well, especially in Vancouver, a lot of like Kiwis, Australians, even Brits were going home.
Yeah.
And that basically meant they're getting rid of everything. And we found this converted camper van. It's a Toyota Sienna. So it's like a big people carrier. Probably like a Dodge, maybe, if you're American, something like that. And it's converted, right? So the back had no seats, had a bed, had a cabinet. I was like, oh. And we saw this Australian girl. I just need to sell it. I was like, okay. And it's like $2,500. And I test drove. I thought, oh, this seems all right. And we didn't say yes at the start. And I got on the train. I was like, Emma, I think we have to say yes to this. So instantly replied back saying, hey, look, I think we're a yes. So we turned back around on the train, went to do the paperwork. And we bought this camper van. And we started going around BC in it, doing campsites, doing some road trips, started sleeping in it. We loved it. Reliable. It's a Toyota, so easy to fix. And then in our minds, we kind of knew we were going to go across Canada someday, but not sure when. And then we just put a plan in place that 2023 would be the summer of that, would be the trip across. And we'll probably drive back as well via the US. So that was kind of 3 years, 2.5 years in the making, I think.
Right.
And the rough plan was we'll go Vancouver Island because we love it. And then we'll go as far east as we can. We did plan to go to Newfoundland, but the ferry is too expensive.
Yes.
And long, and Emma gets seasick, so I think the ferry is quite choppy.
Yeah, that's 3 strikes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we basically followed the one. Went to a national park in every province as a rule, and then hit all the big cities.
Right.
And lots of campsites, amazing scenery, beaches, lakes, mountains, and it took about 8.5 weeks to go across Canada.
Right. So what was your planning process like? Like, did you have like an itinerary, like this is where we got to get to this day, or you just kind of go with the flow and see where you get to?
My only set in stone date was my friend was flying to Toronto for a wedding.
Right.
I thought I'd be good to see him there. He's from Norwich in UK.
Right.
So I had that date in mind. But other than that, it was just where we thought on the map sounded cool and mostly made up. But we knew all the big cities, right? So we knew their reference points. Right. We didn't actually concentrate on the Rockies. Rockies, we kind of skipped a little bit. I might sound, people might be amazed by that, but we've done quite a bit of that before.
Right.
So we thought we'd get through that. And just see where the day goes. Maybe one day in advance. We're going here next. We'll stay here an extra day if we like it. If we don't, we'll go. And I really want to see the eastern part, if I'm honest. I want to see like from Kenora in Ontario, which is really nice, by the way. East. I want to see all those cities, all those lakes, all those little places. So that's my main idea for me personally. But no real plan.
Jen, are you having major heart palpitations? No plan? How are you feeling?
I couldn't do it. I could not do it. But I mean, I envy people that can, but it's It's
Yes,
not the life
no, for
I can
sure.
live. I don't know.
That's
I'm
fair
somewhere
enough.
in the middle of you
Yeah.
2. I'm in the middle. So I'm not a James, but I'm not a Jen. So I can't completely fly by the seat of my own pants either. So
But Halifax was on
like,
the list.
Yeah.
That was a major point because we
there you
half
go.
considered
There you go.
where to live next, right? That was part of the plan.
Oh,
Vancouver wasn't
excellent.
always the place to come back to.
Right.
So we always planned to stay in the big cities at least 3 or 4 days.
Right. Yeah.
And then, yeah, in between was just make it up.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what about highlights and lowlights? Were there any times where, crazy things happen and you're like, what are we doing? Were there times where you're like, this is the most amazing things my eyes have ever seen? Like, talk to us about the highlight moment and maybe a low light moment.
Well, the low light, I can start first because I do remember it. It's actually quite early on. We got to a Soyuz Penticton area in BC, which is the desert area right by the border. Got all the wineries there and stuff. And we realised that our camper van, which doesn't have aircon, was getting really hot during the day when driving and staying hot in the evening. And we were starting to get annoyed and freak out a bit because we could never get cool.
Right.
Even if you keep the door open, you got to be wary of obviously mosquitoes or whatever coming in, but also bugs and stuff. And there wasn't really a breeze. There's fires at that time as well in BC. So that was a low point because we're like, can we really do another 3 and a bit months in this hot camper van that doesn't have aircon? And when you put the fan on in the car, it just blows sort of mild warm air.
Right.
That was a low point. But we got through that because I think that was a one-off because we didn't really experience that warm weather to that degree really for the rest of the trip. Right. And high point, it's got to be Cape Breton. I think, PEI or Cape Breton, one of those two.
I got my Cape Breton mug out today. Yeah.
The Cabot Trail was amazing. That was definitely a highlight.
Yeah.
There's little places and beaches around the head there, like the trailhead and stuff. But I think Prince Edward Island was pretty special as well. The greenest green you could see. The campsites were amazing. The beaches were incredible as well, that side.
Yeah.
I think that was a little highlight for me.
Yeah. This was last summer 2023. Yeah. So you did not visit Nova Scotia in our best summer because it rained all the time. It was so much rain. It was the worst summer of my life that I've ever been here.
It was either fires or rains last year.
Wild. So yeah, hopefully you had some dry weather when you were here, but
I don't really recall much rain apart from Halifax. There were a couple of days that really rained, but I can't actually recall much bad weather. Like last year for me, because we went for the whole year, right, was this good weather year. I never had really any time that was really cold, maybe in like the Himalayas, but other than that, because you're high up, that's the only reason, right? But for me, it's like a year of summer. So even Halifax and Cape Breton, I just kind of remember being like blue skies and amazing road conditions. And,
good for you, James, because that's not how I remember 2023.
I'm sorry.
Now, you have a podcast, Winging It Travel. We mentioned also a YouTube channel. For the listeners, are those two separate entities for you, or do you take the recordings like we do from your podcast and use trip video, which we don't do, to make them accessible to people in a different format? Like, talk to us about both of those mediums for you.
Yeah, they're separate. So audio is interview only, with the odd solo episode where it's going to give a travel update or something important in the travel world. Could be anything. But the interviews are every 2 weeks because long format is quite hard to keep weekly with the amount of editing that needs to be done. So I do every 2 weeks, and I want to give the guest a bit of space. And I'm going to start repurposing some old content, I think, because I reckon people join quite late, don't they? They'll probably find your podcast like, I don't know, 150 episodes in, whatever, and they don't watch the other ones, right? So I'm going to start repurposing some old content, like best of, 10 minutes, best of, whatever. And then the YouTube is actually all of my trip from last year at the minute. So I'm repurposing that in terms of making it like nice and like 10, 15 minutes worth of video and or photos with a nice little recorded background script behind it that I write with my notes that I took from my diary from last year, which I've never written before, but I wrote a diary last year and it's coming in handy right now. So yeah, so that's every week, 10, 15 minutes. I think I'm on to Lebanon right now. So got my Lebanon episode coming up on Thursday. And I think we will be okay. And well, my girlfriend kind of helps me produce it a little bit, but I think we'll be okay until the summer. Then I'm going to start getting some new content because the year trip will be up that point because I started last summer with the road trip.
Right.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm always interested, what led to you wanting to start a podcast, like a travel podcast?
COVID and couldn't travel.
Yeah.
I think you might hear that a lot from travel podcasts.
Yeah, we started in June of 2020, although the ball had sort of been rolling before COVID. I had asked Meggan to start a podcast with me on January 1st, 2020, and then she didn't answer me for a week. And then she took another month and was like, okay, we can talk about it.
I don't like to jump at all my decisions. I like to ponder things, you know?
I definitely jumped straight in. I just bought a microphone and recorded on my phone, right? I had a little app on my phone and that was it. Very rustic.
I'm doing this. I don't need to think about it.
Yeah. Got some friends on from my travels before and that's how it started really. And then, it's developed. That's February 2021. So I was a bit late in you guys, but it's kind of developed from there. And YouTube's quite new, but I think I will put a lot of effort into that this year.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be my new strategy, if you like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're two different things, so it's kind of get two different types of people, I guess. Or some people would watch or do both, listen and watch, and then it's definitely, if no one has ever edited anything, they don't realize how time consuming
it is.
Brutal.
To me.
Luckily last year on my trip, in my back of my mind, I was like, I might do YouTube one day. So I made sure a lot of my footage was the lengthways landscape.
Right.
So I've got enough to get me by. Yeah. I would have been devastated if I had no content to go with. But in my back of my mind, I had it, like, I'll just get that in landscape.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just about
You thought ahead.
Yeah.
One thing I mean to ask is, obviously you're not from Canada originally, you're out in Vancouver. What are you doing for work? Like what is that your job, the podcast and the YouTube, or what are you actually doing to sort of occupy your time or fund your adventures that way?
So back in 2013 I went to Australia, like I said, got the work visa. I'd done like an office job for half a year and then I worked on the vineyards, done a season there, which is quite interesting. I also worked in the mine sites on the kitchens, which was probably the toughest job I've ever done, and I probably wouldn't do it again. 12-hour days, fly in, fly out, 17, 18 days on, that sort of stuff. But I was desperate for money. And then that funded the travels, and then another work visa in New Zealand, office job this time in government in Wellington. That funded more travels. And then this time around, I started in Canada at a place called Stem Cell, which is a STEM research place. Again, admin, HR. Then I moved to a college, and that's where I am right now. And I'm joining them on their IT project. They're going from paper to digital, if you like. It's going to take 10 years. They're about 5 years in. So I started in that project, took a year out of it to go travel last year for a year. And now I'm back there doing some IT cloud-based work. So that's what I do right now.
Excellent. It's a good insight to sort of what possibilities are out there. And it sounds like a variety of things is what you've done. So that's really cool. We know you love coffee. We love coffee. So talk to us about, where have you found the best coffee so far?
God, that's an unbelievable question. That is a tough question. Okay, New Zealand got me started on coffee. I'll say that off the bat. I didn't drink coffee up to that point. And then Wellington's got quite a good coffee and brunch scene. Mm-hmm. So we spent 10 months of that year just going to every brunch place and writing it down and writing a little score out. And that had some of the best coffee that I still like today, like Supreme Coffee. New Zealand's great. It's probably my favorite. But I think that's a bit biased because that's the first place. Right. So I think since then, if you were to tell me tomorrow you're going to go somewhere and drink coffee, where would I go? I think I'm going to go somewhere like Verona, probably in Italy. It's probably got some of the best coffee. Venice had some great coffee. I know if you get away from the tourist area. I met a person in Venice to do an episode, and she's a local, so she told me a few places. So Italian coffee is a bit generic, but that's good. I do love it there as well. And I've got to say Australia has quite good coffee as well, I think.
Interest.
I guess we have to broaden our horizons,
Yeah.
Jen,
I
and
would
go
say
there.
up until this point for me, Iceland had really good coffee, and I feel
wow.
like it was the water because like the glacier
Yes.
water, it was so good. And during COVID, my husband and I decided that we were going to try every independent roastery in Nova Scotia, which I think
Nice.
we did. I mean, some, got added and maybe we've missed them, but we have tried at least the majority. And I have to say, I have to give a shout out to Nova Coffee here in Nova Scotia. They're in the Annapolis Valley, but oh my gosh, it's a blend called Mariner's Cove. And it is my favorite coffee in the world. It is so delicious.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's what we drink every single morning here at our house. And sometimes when we travel, it's a disappointment.
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
can
point
see
about the
why.
water, though.
Yeah.
Great point.
Well,
Because here is pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that's because the water's pretty good, right? From the mountains.
Yeah.
Not
yeah,
a bad
I
point.
could
But
see
then
that.
to counterpoint that, I went to Oman last year, and Oman had the best coffee scene last year that I saw that somewhere new, right? So Oman, for some reason, had all these amazing coffee shops.
Oh, that's
Now,
really cool.
Not sure why, but I couldn't believe what I was tasting. So that's a rogue left field option for you if you want to go to Middle East.
Definitely, definitely. For us, I would say so far, I remember having coffee in Iceland, but I don't remember it standing out. I'll let you know in
Yeah.
June when I go back. But we had great coffee in Germany, and I swear it was really strong coffee. And my husband now makes coffee like we're in Heidelberg or something. I don't know what he thinks every morning, but I don't think we've slept since we came home from Europe in 2022 because he just makes the coffee so terribly strong. And I'm just like, we're not in Europe. I don't know what you're trying to prove here. But I've gotten used to it, sadly. And now any weak coffee, I'm like, what
Yeah.
is this? This isn't coffee. But anyway,
love
those
it.
are really good tips.
They're great. I did start a coffee podcast. Didn't really kick off. I had an idea where I'd travel and do coffee at the same time. Not enough people were invested, unfortunately. So
That's very sad.
I've still got hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got hope in the future, but not right now. But that I might introduce a coffee section on the YouTube channel now that I've got. We'll see. I'm debating.
Yeah,
it.
well,
I think you
I'll
should,
be
James.
there. Yeah.
I support that.
Well, I'm glad we didn't get those recommendations when we went to East last
Yeah.
year. That would have been
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, I've toyed with the idea of buying a home roaster and roasting beans, but the time commitment to learn sounds so intimidating to me at this point that I'm like, maybe it's a someday project. It's maybe a retirement project. I don't know.
Well, we met someone in Vancouver Island, so about 4 years ago, right? We first got a camper van and went to Vancouver Island, and this couple had this like garage converted into a cafe coffee place. And we spoke to them, and at that point, they'd just about bought it from this guy who was a roaster. So they're learning the process of roasting coffee, and they're converting a cafe, getting it going. And we went and saw the guy last year in the summer. So he remembered us. And he's like, oh, yeah, we saw you like 2-3 years ago. I was like, how's it going? He goes, yeah, it's just kicking off. Like, they've got loads of coffee. People are buying it on the islands. They're shipping it out to the mainland. And he's like, yeah, there's a bit of a process to learn how to do it, the roasting part. But once you get your own niche and you stick to your same process and do your own coffee, and it's the same one that people recognize. And I think there's some legs to it.
Yeah. TBD. Maybe there'll be Travel Mug Podcast coffee brand. Maybe someday. So tell me about travel plans. What do you have? Do you have anything in the pipeline you can share with us?
I've got a couple of events. I don't know if you guys go to events for your podcast, but going to Podcast Movement in August in Washington, D.C.
Nice.
I thought I'd try it out and see what happens. Never been to one.
Yeah, we haven't either.
And then I'm not sure what to expect.
Yeah.
Really. We'll go
You let us
and
know.
see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you know if it's good or bad. I'm sure it'll be good.
Yeah.
And November, I've got a month off. So I'm going to go backpack. I'm going to go to El Salvador. And I'm going to go overland to Guatemala, then southern Mexico before flying back to Vancouver.
Awesome.
So that's the only big trip.
I have a friend that just did basically that. She started in Mexico, but she did El Salvador and Guatemala, and her Instagram looked amazing. So I'm sure it's
Oh, wow.
so great.
You have to share it with me
Yeah.
and I'll get some
Yeah, I'll
tips.
send that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks incredible.
Well,
El Salvador looks
speaking
It
incredible.
does.
speaking of El Salvador, we follow Gabriel Traveler on YouTube, and he was just actually in El Salvador not that long ago, and he has a series of videos if you want to check those out as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I'll check it
Oh,
out. There will be a
Yeah.
YouTube series on it for mine as well. I think I'll go and do some proper vlogging there, I think.
yeah.
Because last year, I don't know what you guys think, but YouTube, right? Last year for me, it was never in the mind or in the thought, yes, I might do YouTube in the future, but I was never planning to go and see something because of
Right.
YouTube, right? So everything you see now is a bit genuine. This is what I took on the day, where we went. This is the photo I've got. This is the video I've got, and I'm narrating over the top. But once I run out of content, and the question comes, do I go to El Salvador and go and see things that I don't normally go and see
Right.
just for YouTube, right? So it's a bit of a question in my
Yeah.
mind about how to do it in November, but I got all summer to think about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting once you become a content creator in any sense that you're always kind of like thinking about it. I feel like, okay, make sure I take a picture of this or make sure I video this, and then make sure you're videoing it in the right way for Instagram or
Yeah,
for YouTube or whatever. So sometimes it's like, okay, film it in horizontal and then film it in vertical.
you're absolutely right.
It's so much more work than people than people know. To finish off, tell me maybe your top 3 places that you've been and why. I
Ooh.
know it's hard to choose.
Yeah, I normally give the same answer, so they must be the top 3.
Yeah.
Right? Must be. Bolivia, for a
Okay.
start, I think is a cool place to go and check out in South America. I think a fairly cheap place compared to the rest of the region, and so many different types of potential things you can see, right? From the salt flats in the west to the Amazon in the east. You've got the high towns and the high cities in the middle. La Paz is a bit of a crazy city. And Sucre is like a nice white building colonial city. So there's all these different things going on. And the Bolivians are super nice. And a bit of Spanish would help a long way there. But that country kind of gripped me a little bit. I enjoyed it. Some interesting stories from that. I think New Zealand is probably in there because we camp vanned it on our 1 year working there twice. And I went there in 2013 on the Kiwi Experience bus. If people don't know what the Kiwi Experience is, if you're young, it's a good party bus to go on for a month or two. So I checked out both those islands a couple of times and I just love the place. And I think 3, I normally say Japan. It's between Japan and Nepal. I can't decide which one it is. But based on experience last year, Nepal was great, but I think Japan would just about take it, I think. Because that place is unlike anywhere else. Like the way it's done, super efficient, really nice people, expensive, but everything is just amazingly thought out by the looks of it, in amongst chaos as well. So, yeah.
Right. I can see that. I've watched some content on Japan, and it seems so orderly yet so chaotic. And the food scene, even the convenience store food scene, like it's mind-boggling to me. I've seen so many sandwiches with strawberries in them, and I'm just like, well, I need to have that in my life. So I feel like I need to go there for more than this. But when I think of it, I think I want to go to like the convenience stores and get the snacks.
Absolutely. Yeah. They kind of bail you out sometimes when you get a bit confused about what food to have. It can be
Right.
overwhelming, right? Because you don't know the language, and Japanese is not the best at speaking English, which is not a bad thing. I'm just saying you need to be aware of that. So when you're a bit stressed, just go into the convenience store and buy a sandwich and you'll be fine. Good coffee there as well. I think you enjoy the coffee.
Oh, wonderful. And I think there's something called ngari as well, the triangles. Oh, anyway, it all looks so delicious, and I definitely have Japan on my list. I just have to convince my husband to fly that far. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, it's quite
We'll
far from you, isn't it? Oh
It
crikey.
is
Mhm.
quite.
Cole, what is that flight from you? That must be.
Yeah, so we
I
would
can't even
have to
think.
fly. I think most flights would take us like Halifax to like Vancouver and then Vancouver.
Yeah,
So
and then do it from
I
here.
think in
Mm.
my I haven't done the flight either. Like we have like Australia, New Zealand, Japan all on our list. And I think we would have to like fly to Vancouver and spend a couple days in Vancouver and then go on the
Yeah.
other flight because I just don't think I can handle I think we're 8-hour flight to Vancouver from Halifax, and then flying another. I wouldn't survive.
No,
I tell you what,
no, I think
that
it's a
is
good plan.
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
One lesson learned from the road trip is Canada's huge, and US, because we went back for our US, right? Huge. There are so many days you just drive 8 hours, 9 hours just to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Mental.
No, it is wild. We are much more accessible to Europe than we are to you in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Canadians enjoy Europe so much, though, because everything is so close and we're not used to that. And we're just like, this is exciting. In a half an hour, I could be here. Like, it's mind blowing for us. So I think that that's why Europe also has a lot of appeal to Canadians, just because you can get more done in the course of a vacation than you can in your own country, essentially.
Yeah, and I think I've appreciated that now more. I think 10 years, 14 years since I left, whatever it was. I do now think, why on earth did I not do more of Europe back, before 2013, really? But also, because of Brexit, why did I not go and live in Europe more before we came out of the EU?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, some regrets there for
Yeah.
sure.
Hindsight is always funny.
Yeah, I
to
can
me,
see that.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, James, where can our listeners find you online? All the places. Let us know.
Yep. So the handle is Winging It Travel Podcast. That is Instagram, YouTube, and all the podcast platforms that people listen to. And also, I do kind of go by on Facebook and X, whatever it's called, but I don't use them. They're kind of automated a little bit. So the only real place I do post is Instagram, and YouTube. I do a lot of shorts and community posts and stuff like that. And obviously the podcast platforms. So they're probably the best ones to reach me on.
Perfect. We'll have those in the show notes so people can just go click and find you and follow you there.
Wonderful.
Sounds
Well,
great.
thank you so much for coming on today, James. Finally, we're so glad we got to have you on the show. As for us at the Travel Mug Podcast, you can find us on social media at Travel Mug Podcast. On travelmugpodcast.com is our website. We'd super appreciate any Spotify or Apple podcast reviews. It helps more people find the show. You can also support us on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the show notes, or sharing the show with a travel-loving pal. And until next time, bye, everyone.